So we're going to get into something pretty radical today, something that might even feel a little uncomfortable. It's this idea that to become whole, you don't actually reach for the light. No, you have to descend into your own darkness. Welcome to the Shadow's Descent.
All right, let's just dive right in with the core idea of this whole explainer. A man without a shadow is not holy, but merely hollow. I mean, think about that. It totally flips what we're usually taught, right? We think goodness is just the absence of bad. But this is saying something else entirely. It's saying that if you've never wrestled with your own dark side, your own potential for chaos, you're not holy. You're just hollow, incomplete.
And that leads us to this really challenging question. Society is always telling us to climb, right? Rise above, be better, get higher. But what if that's not the path to becoming whole? What if it all begins not with a climb, but with a fall? I'm talking about a deliberate, courageous dive, headfirst into all those parts of yourself you've been told to push down and ignore. Okay, so our guide on this wild journey is a character, a figure. The source material calls the Jester. And his whole job, it's to get us to look past the masks we all wear, especially that comfortable mask of our own innocence. So the Jester, right off the bat, just completely shatters our romantic idea of childhood. He's saying that the child, that innocent, whole person, isn't something you start as and then lose. No, it's an achievement. It's something you earn. The result of a really brutal internal battle to face and integrate your own shadow. And this idea right here perfectly explains the difference between just acting tough and having real power. On one hand, you've got the hollow roar. That's the person who shouts, "I will," but has no clue about the aggressive beast lurking inside them. It's all bark, no bite. But then you have acknowledged power. That's the roar of someone who knows that beast is there, has looked it in the eye, and has harnessed its raw energy. Their will, that has real substance. So this brings us to what is maybe the most critical part of this whole journey: the descent into the abyss inside yourself. The source has a really powerful name for this: the inner death of God. And what that means is, it's when all the external rules, all the beliefs you leaned on to tell you who to be, when all of that just collapses, and you're forced to find a new center, a new anchor, entirely within yourself. Okay, so let's get concrete. What is the shadow, really? Well, simply put, it's your own personal underworld. It's the basement of your psyche where you shove everything you don't want to look at. All the repressed appetites, that secret rage you never acknowledge, your raw capacity for chaos. It's all that stuff. And this inner confrontation, it usually unfolds in about 3 stages. First, the scaffolding collapses. Everything you used to rely on, your culture, your family's rules, your politics, it all just gives way. Then, step 2, you're just left there, staring into the void. No more external guideposts. And that's when you hit step 3. You finally face the whole picture, your true potential, for both incredible greatness and for terrifying malice. And here's where the Jester gets really provocative. He actually mocks the pure of heart. Why? Because he says they're only pure because they're too weak to be dangerous. They're not virtuous, they're just harmless. Think about it. True virtue, in his eyes, means having the capacity for real harm, being a monster, but choosing not to be. Without the power to be dangerous, the choice to be good doesn't really mean anything. Okay, so you've confronted your shadow, now what? The goal isn't to kill it or get rid of it, the goal is to integrate it. And this next part of the journey reveals what the source calls a poisonous beauty, this incredible idea that the most toxic parts of you, once you understand them, can actually become the source of your greatest power. I mean, this quote says it all, doesn't it? Your demons are the fuel for your divinity. This is the big secret. All those things you've labeled as demons, your rage, your wild ambition, your aggression, that's just raw psychological energy. Pushing it down takes a ton of effort. It's exhausting. But if you face it, if you integrate it, you don't destroy that energy. You reclaim it. You turn it from something destructive into the very fuel for your highest self. And this all builds up to this powerful Nietzschean idea called amor fati, which just means to love one's fate. It's about embracing every single thing that's ever happened to you, the good and the bad. And to really do that, you have to love the whole package. You have to love the predator inside you just as much as you love the saint, because both of them together make up the complete architecture of who you are. I love this metaphor. Think of yourself as a psychological miner. You're not some sculptor trying to chip away imperfections to create something flawless. Nope, you're a miner. Your job is to put on the hard hat, descend into the darkness of your own mind, and dig through all the rock and pressure of society's expectations to find that vein of pure gold that is your true, authentic self.
So, after all this brutal internal work, what's the result? It's the forging of an undivided self. And this person, they don't operate on society's simple, hand-me-down labels of good and just anymore. Instead, they start to create their own values from scratch.
The source has a name for this kind of person, a fellow creator. And what are they like? Well, for one, they have survived their internal monsters. They face them and come out the other side. And here's the really big one. They no longer project their own darkness onto other people. Instead, they use that dark energy like a hammer to smash old, useless rules. And finally, they practice what you might call psychological hygiene. They actively clean out the guilt that holds so many people back. So you really have two different ways of looking at the world here. On one side, you've got what Nietzsche called slave morality. It's a system built on resentment, on fake humility, and it's just heavy with guilt. He called it the spirit of gravity. But on the other side, you have psychological sovereignty. This is what you get through wholeness, by being totally shamelessly honest with yourself. It's about finally ending that civil war inside your own soul. And this quote is the ultimate payoff. It's the final expression of loving your fate. It's the triumphant roar of someone who has done the work, who can look back at their entire life, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, and say without hesitation, was that life? Well then, once more.
All right, we've reached the climax of our story. This whole journey, all this knowledge, it forces a choice on you. It leads to a grand reckoning. And here, we finally see the jester for what he really is. He's the trickster. His goal isn't just to make you laugh. It's to cause chaos, to disrupt things. He's here to shatter the fragile, rigid shell of your ego, to break it open so your deeper, truer self can finally come out. So this is the choice, laid out plain and simple. What's it going to be? The safe, comfortable stagnation of the herd, just doing what everyone else does, or the dangerous, chaotic fluidity of the abyss, that uncertain, terrifying, but ultimately authentic path of becoming who you truly are. And so we leave you with this image. The jester has brought you to the edge of a tightrope stretched out over the abyss. His job is done. He just stands there, grinning, waiting to see what you're going to do next. The only question left is the one he's asking you right now. Are you going to fall, or are you going to fly?